Don't get baited by using low quality champions for this new dungeon. I beg you, let me explain why. What up team, it is MurderInc here on the test server talking about, once again, the brand new dungeon coming out, the Sand Devil's Necropolis, which is going to prove to be a very difficult dungeon. Now there's one thing I want to talk about, and it's very important. You're going to want to use specific champions with specific roles here, and there are champions that have very low champion quality that you can use. Don't fall for the bait. I'm telling you right now, the intensity of the mechanics, even if it is going to get nerfed and tuned down the line, it's going to be massive bait to be using champions like that while progressing through this. So to better understand what I'm talking about here, I'm going to head to the site I've been using for 3 years now, Yumi Love, and we're going to look at all the sleep champions here. Now the first thing you're going to notice here is on the target sleep champions, we have Hellhound as well as Death Knight. So let's go ahead and take a look at Hellhound and Death Knight in game. So here is the first champion, Hellhound. We have attacks when an enemy places a sleep debuff on the target for 1 turn when hit with a critical hit. So you would have to build this champion with crit rate, and while masteries aren't that good for the boss anyways at the moment, anyone who convinces you that you need to put the boss to sleep to defeat the boss is giving you wrong information. If you haven't already, check out my boss guide fully explaining the boss from every single nuance you could possibly think of for the mechanics and how it works. The boss can be put to sleep by himself without needing the sleep debuff, and for many teams it's going to be the most efficient way to do that. So with that being said, to invest to 6-star a common champion like this that only has one ability, which is sleep, which is the worst thing you can do, which is why I also don't value Siphi the Lost Bride very high, because she's constantly using her A1 and she can sleep at the wrong time because she only has 2 abilities. She has a revive where someone has to be dead. She has her A2 which boosts the turn meter, defense up, block debuff, and then it's just her A1 sleep. The key to using a sleep champion is to use it when you want to use it, which means it cannot be on the A1. So using a champion like this is just not going to be good for you. The next champion is going to be Death Knight. His chance is much lower and the consistency just isn't going to be there. So now that we moved away from commons, look at the rares. We have a ton of rare champions you can use. Rares isn't too low to start using, but I would highly recommend that the first thing you do is make sure you have a 100% chance of placing that sleep. And when I say chance, I literally do mean chance. I know once you build accuracy, you have a 3% chance to get resisted. That's not what I'm talking about. You need a 100% chance of placing that debuff in the first place. So for example, just looking at Arcanist here, we have a 20% chance, 25, 30, 40, so we're not going to be using that skill because it's simply a 40% chance here. And you can just go down the list here, looking for all of the champions that you need to, finding the ability that puts them to sleep. And for Crimson Slayer, attack 3 times at random. Each it has a 30%, 40, 50% chance of landing. Even though it's 3 times at random, you would not want to use this champion either. Diabolist here, very common champion you see from the campaign farming. 10% chance of sleeping, we don't want it. Interceptor, 45, 50% chance. Once again, we don't want this at all. So far the rares are looking quite disappointing here. Okay, the first champion that's looking promising is going to be Muckstalker. Attacks one enemy, places a sleep debuff for 2 turns if the target has no active buffs. Is the target going to have no active buffs if you're placing sleep on it? Absolutely. So is this going to be good champion? Yes, the first good champion I found, and it's not on his A1, it's a 3-turn cooldown, so that is looking good for sure. But just looking at the snippet here, you know, we can just find this in game. Going to the Lizardmen, Mr. Muckstalker. Let's talk about him. How good is he? Pretty good. 20,000 health, first thing that jumped straight out to me. These are some good stats. That's really good stats here. His passive, 15% continuous heal on this champion for 2 turns if incoming damage exceeds 20% in one attack. Very likely to happen, so this is a really strong ability for sure. As far as the A1 goes, attacks one time. Good if you're trying to minimize your hits on the sleep counter. So Muckstalker is going to be a viable option here. Yes, his defense is low, but the hard-hitting ability, as we already established, ignores defense. 100% defense. So the fact that he has 20k health makes him a very, very strong candidate for you to use if you need a sleep champion, as opposed to anyone under the rare quality. Next we have Retainer. Let's take a look at him. Where is his sleep? On the A3 ability, 5-turn cooldown. If the target's turn meter is fully depleted, going to be a bit hard to use, so I would say stay away from somebody like this, but if you have him, you can definitely make good use of him. The next one's going to be an A1 ability. On a sleep, is there another one? I don't think so. So this guy's out, Mr. Seducer. And finally, we have a Vagabond here, also in the A1. So overall, the best slot, let's just take a look at Marquis really quick, and he is going to have less than 100% chance of applying the sleep debuff. So once again, despite the very high multiplier on paralyzing bolts, if it's not 100%, we're not going to use it. So Muckstalker going to be the game-changing rare for sure. After that, just do the same exact thing that I just did here and apply it to epics to find out the proper champion for you. Epics are going to be fine to go all the way up to stage 25, despite how few people are going to get there based on the current tuning of this boss. A couple things to note. There are some new champions that can work, specifically Noct the Paralyzer kind of stood out to me, but the amount of people that are going to have him are very, very low, because he does provide sleep, he does provide heals, ally protection, and continuous heal buff. Decreased accuracy doesn't really matter. And on top of that, he has 2 abilities that hit 1 time and 1 ability that hits 0 times. Very strong kit for this new boss, but that's just kind of a side comment because it did pop into my head when talking about Muckstalker being the HP based champion, then saying I remember Noct's kit specifically after a clanmate brought it up to me as to how good he could potentially be based on this new boss's kit for sure. But again, most players don't have him because he's so new, so it's not really worth mentioning here. The key point is, don't go with a low quality champion just because you see someone using overpowered gear making him work. It's not going to work for you 99% of the time, and if it does, you're going to fall off very quickly if you're trying to get to those later stages. So as we found out in about 5 seconds of looking, Muckstalker is going to be that exception, being the lowest quality I would ever attempt to use in most content in this game if you do want to push far here. Because while a champion, like some of the comments we looked at, specifically being, I think it was what, Hellhound from the Undead? Is it Undead? No, Hellhound. I don't know why I keep saying Hellhound. While he does have a sleep, it's his only ability. You cannot plan when you want to use it and when you don't want to use it. And you would be investing in this guy for a very small amount of stages. He's not going to be viable all the way up to the top unless you have insane champions around him, constantly reviving him, and it's just going to be a mess, so I don't recommend it. So this is something I didn't even know when I first went into the video, how good that rare was going to be, so there's kind of an Easter egg for you if you did click on this video to watch it. Muckstalker is going to do crazy things for this boss, so if you can get your hands on one, definitely go for it. And for a little bit of icing on the cake, where can you get this standout champion for free? I mean, nothing is really free, right? But he's a campaign drop from Godfrey's Crossing, because we all need that retaliation gear. No, but seriously, you can actually farm this champion from the campaign, whatever difficulty you are, he's going to be viable for sure. So really glad I made this video, was considering maybe not making it because there weren't enough good points to talk about, but we just found kind of a hidden gem here. This champion slaps. He can be farmed from the campaign. He can be used easily in a ton of different types of teams here, referring to any of the other videos I've made on this boss so far. So hidden gem for you all. Let me know what you think, and make sure, please, once again, this isn't just going to apply to this dungeon, to any dungeon. Anytime you see a showcase of a champion that's going to stand out to you being very low quality, kind of like a meme use, uncommon champions, common champions, they are very hard to make work. A lot of times when they're showcased, it's through trial and error. It takes 20 runs to make it so they don't die in the footage that's being shown to you. Trust me, I've seen it many times. I've seen comments of saying, I built this champion for this content. It was supposed to be insane as advertised, and it's just dying all the time. It does work a few times, but in the end, it's not that consistent. So keep that in mind for this dungeon and for other dungeons when looking at this. Try to keep rare champion as the minimum level of champion you do use. There are some exceptions to it, but they're easy to figure out, especially for uncommon champions. Look at their kit, look at their base stat, and then from there determine if they are going to be a viable option throughout your progression, not just for a niche situation on a low level of a dungeon. Alright guys, that's going to conclude this video. Give me your feedback. Who's ready to farm Muckstalker in the campaign? I'm ready. Hopefully you are too. Let's get into it, and I will see you all in the next upload.